The markets may be closed, but business stories are just heating up. I'm Robert Tan. Catch up with us on Business Brief. Here's what's making headlines today. Vice President Sara Duterte and 15 officials are charged with plunder and graft over 612.5 million pesos in confidential government funds. Philippine business leaders say President Marcos' 4 governance reform bills could create a more stable, transparent, and investor-friendly environment. Senator Sherwin Gatchalian flags absence of funds for Independent Commission on Infrastructure in 2026, 6.793 trillion peso budget, warning of possible project delays. Time magazine honors AI pioneers for shaping the era of thinking machines and transformative technology. Business leaders are pushing for reform and they want action now. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or PCCI, is urging President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to fast-track 4 key governance bills. The measures include the Anti-Political Dynasty Bill, the Cadena Act, the Partyless System Reform Act, and the Independent People's Commission Act. Their goal is to boost transparency, accountability, and investor confidence. The PCCI says passing these reforms quickly will strengthen democratic institutions and signal that the Philippines is committed to a clean, fair, and competitive business environment. The Philippines is forging stronger ties on the global stage. Marcos welcomes the new ambassadors of Chile and China at the Malacanang Palace. He expresses eagerness to work with them to strengthen bilateral relations and expand cooperation between the Philippines and their countries. The ambassadors pledged to focus on deepening friendly ties and promoting international collaboration. More than 1 billion pesos spent, and the San Juanico Bridge is set to fully reopen by mid-2026. Marcos says the foreign-funded bridge linking Samar and Leyte will soon carry up to 33 metric tons in both directions. The president lamented that retrofitting costs about 1.1 billion pesos, a bill he says could have been avoided with regular inspections and maintenance. Before restoration, structural weaknesses forced authorities to impose traffic restrictions and controls. Marcos criticized agencies for inconsistent upkeep that left the bridge vulnerable. Once fully restored, the bridge could ease transportation and boost trade between Samar and Leyte. Vice President Sara Duterte faces fresh corruption allegations over the alleged misuse of 612 million pesos in confidential funds. Joan Manalo is on the line with more details. Joan, go ahead.
Robbery, plunder, graft, and other corruption complaints have been filed before the Ombudsman against Vice President Sara Duterte and several officials of the DepEd and OVP over the alleged misuse of more than 612 million pesos in confidential funds. Former Finance Undersecretary Shelo Magno, Father Flavio Villanueva, and Father Robert Reyes led the filing, claiming the Vice President directed parallel schemes to divert public funds through irregular cash advances and fabricated documents from 2022 to 2023. The complainants say funds were given to unauthorized military officers and liquidated using fictitious names, alleging a systematic avoidance of oversight and a serious breach of public trust. These issues also figured in the impeachment case earlier filed against Duterte. Court avoided for violating the one-year bar rule. The House is now asking the court to reverse that decision. Despite the ruling, the complainants maintain that the ombudsman must still hold the vice president accountable. Duterte has earlier said the questioned names and the records were aliases used for intelligence operations. Robert.
Thank you very much for that report, Joan Manalo. Meanwhile, no separate budget yet, but work will go on. Senator Sherwin Gatchalian confirms the Independent Commission on Infrastructure won't get a standalone allocation under the proposed 2026 national budget. Instead, funding will come from the Office of the President, which has enough resources to keep the commission running. Gatchalian says the ICI will continue its activities in 2026 and welcomed Marcos's push to prioritize the passage of the Independent People's Commission bill. The Philippines faces a $5.3 billion balance of payments deficit in the first 9 months of 2025, signaling pressure on the economy. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, reports this equals 1.5% of the country's GDP. The BSP says the deficit reflects tighter global financial conditions and ongoing trade uncertainties, which could affect growth and investor confidence. We're taking a short break. Stick around. We've got more stories ahead. You're watching Business Brief. A first for Laguna, the Department of Education opens its first fully air-conditioned public school building in San Pedro. Education Secretary Sani Angara says better classroom conditions can boost learning, and similar infrastructure upgrades will continue across the country. The new 4-story building at Pasita 2 Elementary School has 12 classrooms and is expected to benefit more than 6,000 students. Another contractor is under fire. Representative Romeo Momo Sr. faces plunder and graft complaints. A group of Catholic priests and lawyers from Tandang, Surigao del Sur filed charges over alleged government contracts worth 1.4 billion pesos. These projects were awarded to his family-owned construction firm, Surigao La Suerte Corporation, or SLSC. The complainants say Securities and Exchange Commission's records list Momo as a director during the periods SLSC secured the government contracts. Momo denies the allegations, insisting there's no conflict of interest and clarifying that he has already divested from the company. With public scrutiny mounting, the government's next steps in pursuing accountability will be closely watched and could be key to restoring investor confidence. The Philippine economy remains in a yellow light scenario. On BNC's Business 360, Stephen Kunying, independent director at Maharlika Investment Corporation, said public frustration is growing and government actions have fallen short of expectations. Kunying noted divisions among opposition groups and said it remains to be seen whether the administration's actions will be substantial enough to satisfy the people.
First of all, the people who, or let's say, are unhappy but not unified. You basically have three camps with three conflicting objectives. This is the anti-administrations. First, one basically says, whether I'm happy or not, the alternative is worse, so let's stay with the situation, unhappy as I am. The second is, I want the vice president to take over. The third is, I don't want either of them to take over. But in that division always helps the incumbent. And so they haven't found a unified message, which if you look at previous in circumstances when things change, the incumbent is relatively stable now.
As the border conflict between Thailand and Cambodia deepens, an expert believes China could outweigh the leverage of the U.S. as a mediator. On BNC's At the Forefront, Professor Aris Arugay explains that China's deep economic and political ties with Thailand and Cambodia may overshadow the influence of the White House. However, he notes Beijing is unlikely to mediate, warning that doing so could open the door for other states to intervene in China's own domestic affairs.
The U.S. is, of course, a very important actor for both countries. Let's remember that Thailand is also an ally of the United States, though not necessarily a mutual defense treaty ally like us. On the other hand, Cambodia wants to balance its relationship between China and the U.S. because for now, it's very skewed towards China. In fact, the accord that was signed in Kuala Lumpur, the U.S. wanted it to be a deal forged by Trump. Because as you know, Trump wants to solve conflicts around the world. What is important is that China's very big role, not only in the economics, but in the politics in both countries, could in fact trump the leverage offered by the United States.
Meanwhile, Arugay echoes the sentiment that the Philippines can take a more proactive and constructive role in mediating the Thai-Cambodia tensions, as the country is set to assume ASEAN chairmanship in 2026.
During the ASEAN summit in Malaysia, the ASEAN Secretary General, who is Cambodian, expressed confidence that President Marcos and the Philippines can take a more proactive and constructive role as mediator. And if you notice, when President Marcos opened the ceremony of the Philippines chairmanship, he also focused on peace and security. So I think the Philippine government at the moment has a quite cognizant role that it faces a very challenging region.
Heightened geopolitical tensions in the Asia-Pacific may trigger shifts in foreign policy, affecting regional economic outcomes. Jetour is charging into the Philippines, literally. The Chinese automaker strengthens its presence with plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. SUVs make up about 32% of the local market, and Jetour's new T1 Lightning IDM aims to capture the growing PHEV segment. The company notes walk-in clients now ask first whether vehicles are hybrids and is expanding charging infrastructure for the booming EV community.
Monthly, the price category of about 2.5 million SUV is about 400 units a month. But with our T1, priced at about 1.7 million, occupies about 2,000 vehicles a month for that segment of SUV in our local market.
Pure Gold is transforming shopping into an experience. The supermarket chain is rolling out community-driven initiatives to make its brand more than just a grocery store. The Hakot Relay Run, Pure Gold's latest event, drew over 8,000 participants, highlighted Filipino culture, and gave partner brands a platform for product exposure. Company President Vincent Cos says these efforts, including Pure Gold, Cine Panalo, and OPM Con, help build customer loyalty, boost sales, and keep the brand relevant in a rapidly changing retail landscape. Survivors of Super Typhoon Odette are taking on a global giant. Greenpeace International is helping them sue Shell, claiming the oil company worsened the effects of climate change. Paolo Barcelon is on the line with the details. Paolo, go ahead.
Robert, survivors of Super Typhoon Odette are suing Shell in the United Kingdom, accusing the company of aggravating climate effects that made the 2021 storm more destructive. The case is the first civil suit linking an oil company's pollution to deaths and injuries in the global south, and it involves more than 100 Filipinos. Greenpeace says communities hit hardest by climate change are now taking big polluters to court to demand accountability. Greenpeace's Philippines climate campaigner Jefferson Chua says the organization is seeing a surge of climate cases, a sign that oil and gas companies should cough up to pay for the climate damage they cause towards communities where they operate. Survivors argue Shell's historical carbon emissions made the impacts worse and say the company continued expanding fossil fuel projects even after the disaster. The group is seeking compensation now for lives lost and homes destroyed, and they call the case a fight for climate justice. The case is expected to be heard in the UK under Philippine law. In a statement, Shell PLC said that the claim that was pursued by the claimants is baseless, and that such claim will not help tackle climate change or reduce emissions. They also said that the suggestion that Shell had unique knowledge about climate change is simply not true, and that the oil giant or energy giant is helping reduce emissions from their operations and helping customers to do the same. Robert.
Thank you very much for your report, Paolo Barcelon. We're taking another short break. Up next, a quick look at how Philippine shares closed today. That and more when Business Brief returns. Stay with us. Asian markets are trading higher on this final trading day of the week. Across the region, Japan's Nikkei 225 is closed today, while the rest of the major Asian indices are firmly in the green. On currencies, the US dollar depreciates against the Singapore dollar, while the Australian dollar appreciates against the greenback. The US dollar, however, appreciates against most other Asian currencies. On commodities, gold edges lower, while oil prices trade mixed. And in crypto, Bitcoin rises 0.8%, and Ethereum adds almost 0.2%. Philippine shares end in the positive territory in the final trading day of the week as investors continue to digest the latest 25 basis point rate cut of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. The PSEI ended nearly 0.8% higher to 60.36. All the sectoral indices gained, with mining and oil rising the most at nearly 2%. All shares fell by 0.5%. Decliners outpaced advancers 96 to 92, with value turnover at 7.3 billion pesos. Majority of the day's most active stocks were in the green, with DNL rising the most at almost 8%. Meanwhile, on currencies, the peso is currently trading at nearly 59.10 against the US dollar, down from the previous close of 58.99. Artificial intelligence doesn't exist without the minds behind it. As 2025 wraps up, Time magazine names the architects of AI its Person of the Year. Time editor-in-chief Sam Jacobs says the honor highlights the people shaping our lives. For 2025, he says no one has a bigger impact than those developing and advancing AI. The Person of the Year issues explores how AI transforms the world in exciting and sometimes alarming ways. It features interviews with NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang and AI investors, including SoftBank's Masayoshi Son. AI expands rapidly, becoming a powerful tool for businesses, but with this, progress comes with a risk, as comprehensive regulations remain scarce worldwide. And that's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Robert Tan. Join us again next week for the stories that help you plan your next big, bold business moves. Only here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.